as well too,
Yep.
right? You have structured
exactly.
water. You don't need
Yep.
as much of it because it's hydrated.
You can absorb it. Yeah.
So same with the food. If the food, if the food didn't, let's just make an easy scenario: travel 2,000 miles to a grocery store, sit underneath lights that are cooking it with radiation and altering the frequencies and all of these things. I mean, by the time you're going to get it, how many nutrients are in it? And the reason I say this was there was a great book by Dr. John Ott, which was called Health and Light. And he learned that when food was placed underneath fluorescent bulbs, the mineral content of those foods, such as like, let's say raw milk, was diminished by 75%.
Wow.
Right? So think of every grocery store. They all got LEDs now, which is pretty much the same thing. But, they have that. And then what's happening? As it's sitting there, it's diminishing that life force before it's even brought to you. And then, yes, you're going to have to eat, 10 apples to try to get that nutrient profile that you're trying to bring into your body. And then by that time, it's also putting a big hole in your pocket because you're trying to get those nutrients that your body is craving and trying to, repair and restore.
This whole organic thing, right? Everyone's going organic. And I went to an organic shop, was it yesterday or the day before? And holy crap, man, they wanted $5 for one orange. And they weren't, and the oranges weren't orange. Like, they're sort of these off yellow. And I'm just thinking, everyone's into organic, but is that even...
Is it organic? Half the organics have GMO in it, and they're like, "Oh, there was no pesticides, but it's still organic." But it's like,
but what does organic even mean, really? I mean, what's non-organic? I mean, non-organic means not from Earth, right? I mean, pretty sure all the food's from Earth, but I mean, we seem to be going down one sort of path that they're pushing it, and they love to push molecules, like balls. Everything's a molecule. Everything's it's no fields. The ether doesn't exist. There's no fields. Just molecules, right? Little balls, which is, this whole organic. But clearly it looks like if you just need to grow food and just have the right fields and frequencies around, and then you get the ultimate food rather than, I mean, what even is organic? We don't even know, do we, really? It's just a label.
Well, and that's the thing is, sometimes these labels get messed with, right? And I've seen that a lot with the meat. Right, a lot of the meats are getting messed with now, where they're allowing things into the meat that people don't know are going into the meat, and they are hiding under little loopholes, like you said, that are being placed in there so that they can maybe permit something, or whatever. Or, for example, there could be, I've seen things where, organic has changed our lives. Like we went all organic, and it just, my whole health changed, and my whole story is pretty much from that. But in general, there are certain loopholes which are now being added in because that movement has also grown so large. Right now, they know, everybody's going towards it. We're going to have to change maybe some things, and people should be aware of this. Like it might not be the same as, say, 5 years ago. And like you said, when we start growing all our own food, we can also give food to each other and then also help feed all the animals who are also needing food. Right? Because I get a lot of messages where they're like, I got deers eating my food, and everybody. The reason being, the deers need food too. So if we all have abundance, then we can all give that out to each other, and then create those, like you said, those energetic communities, and that can be done very easily. It's not a challenge, but yeah, the biggest thing is people are just, like you said, they're just suffering from nutrient deficiency because there's so much bait and switch stuff going on. Right? That's kind of how I see it. You're sold this. But then you get it and you're like, wait a minute, that's not even the color that's it's supposed to be, right? I know what an orange is. It's orange, So and then if we think of the energetic principle of that, if the color is not there yet, right, and it hasn't ripened, well, are all the nutrients in there too, right? Because it's not ripe yet. So it's actually not the time to eat it yet, and nature's trying to show you these are green, so don't touch them, So now we're kind of picking and choosing when we're going to bring that energy into our body, and that might not be doing the same benefits.
And that's all got to do with, transportation and shipping and all this kind of stuff, isn't it? Like if we were picking it from a tree, you would never pick anything that wasn't ripe. Clearly. But organic. So organic is basically, it started off farming without any chemicals, right? Fertilizer, all this kind of stuff. but yeah, I mean, yeah, who know, now that it's an industry, obviously big business are like, oh, we want a bit of that, but they don't actually want to grow organic, do they? Because it doesn't fit their model. So we do have to be careful.
I believe for the most part, like up here in Canada, organic means no pesticides and no herbicides. But realistically, if they're still using fertilizers that, you know, is it really organic? You want to use natural stuff like bat guano and bone meal and blood meal. That's as organic as you can get, you know. And
yeah, I remember when I was young, like blood and bone used to be the only fertilizer that I really knew about. Like,
that reminds me of Steiner Prep, right? All his stuff too. He did that with the bones and the bull horns when he put the bull horns into the earth, and then did the manure and the quartz, which once again piezoelectric effect. But you know, same thing. They used to put those bull horns into the earth and stuff them with manure and quartz.
Yeah, I've heard this.
Into the earth, and that would amplify the energetic field for the upcoming season, right? Because after it went through its that process from fall, winter, spring, right, and all of those seasons, then that energy would be amplified for that area. So yeah, same thing. We used to use a lot of natural ways and things that are just abundant, right? Like, for example, the manure thing.
Exactly.
Obviously, you have animals. There is manure, you know, so that went with that. But a lot of that replaced, like, you know, as we were just talking about, you know, with toxic things that don't fit the narrative, but also then keep the narrative of the sickness going, right? And then each one is all owned under the same umbrella. So they're trying to keep that mission going because they're getting a kickback from every part of the division.
Yeah, I mean, abundance seems to, you know, that kind of fix everything, wouldn't it, really? I heard this story the other day about these farmers in Africa, and one had a crop of corn or something, and the elephants were coming, you know, to try and get his thing, and he'd run out with a shotgun and be shooting up and trying to scare them away, and they came back the next day and basically just trampled his whole crop, just destroyed it. And then a farmer down the road, she would actually put food out for the elephants. And they would come along, they would eat the food, and they wouldn't touch her crops, and they'd go off because. And this is the thing: like one, you know, mindset is abundance. Well, I've got enough to feed the elephants too. One is no, I don't have enough. I need to protect what I've got. But so if everyone just had more than they needed, that would just solve so many things. And obviously, food is the main thing, right? I mean, we have this thing called poverty. You know, I mean, all this can be fixed once you've got your food done. Then you're healthy, you're fit, you're strong, you can get out and you can do things, you can build things. So it all really does start with food security, which is what they've taken away from us, right?
That's the biggest ones, right? I've realized if we just took care of food and water, right? You had primary water, structured water that's free coming out of the earth, and then you have all the food. You're pretty much set. You can figure out the energy. The energy is not even a difficult one at that point because you already have your food and your water to keep you alive. So, you know, those two things, just eliminating those, or at least restoring those, I should say, you can fix everything overnight. And the thing is that's why I realized they never do any of that to fix this or anything, because they just want to keep us in this perpetual cycle so that we just keep coming back for more. And then, like we said at the beginning of this podcast, is that, you know, the eggs go from, let's say, $3 to $10 to $20, and then they just keep playing games. But it's like there's still the same amount of eggs. There's no difference. You know? Like there's no eggs running out. They're still coming in. And it was interesting. I did a video. This was like 6 months ago, or like when all the shortages were occurring, and it was interesting because a lot of the shortages were occurring because they were holding the stuff in the warehouses and not releasing it to the public. And then 3 months later in the summertime, they did a sale. This was Amazon, Walmart, Target, all the big brands. They did a big sale, a blowout sale, because they had too much inventory. So then they put it all on sale after they claimed we were all running out of everything.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a big scam. They just give us a story, and if we believe it, then we create it for them. I mean, this is what's been going on for so long.
They try and build scarcity so that we buy their products. That's basically what it is.
It is. I watched a doco last night, living on $1 a day, And it was just, you know, and it was about poverty, obviously, and these people, but the same thing, like, and they were in Guatemala, right? They were in the tropics, but they were so, you know, sort of programmed that they were going to the shop, you know, they were going and working on other people's farms to get their $1 a day and then going and spending that at a shop to buy food rather than growing their own food, you know. But the thing is because they were so undernourished and you know, they didn't have enough food, they couldn't get out and do stuff. Literally, they couldn't go out and build businesses or build new houses because they didn't have the energy, you know. So it really does all start with food, you know. If you've got the energy, you can go and do what's needed to be done.
Speaking of which, sorry, I finally found the video on the Alien Scientist channel where I show my 6-foot lettuce there. And it literally provided like 10 different salads throughout the summer. That's why it's so bare on the stalk, but it's because my dad kept picking leaves off of it. And you can see it's right in the middle there. It's as tall as the sunflowers.
Yep.
And like that's with this technology, abundance is coming, and their fake scarcity no more. And
I agree.
They've been covering it up for far too long. And Matt, I've got questions for your own experiments and usage. I saw some that you had coils around it and whatnot. What are you doing this year? And are you putting electrical currents in, or just antenna ether energy and like nothing off the grid?
Yeah, just at the moment, it's just all antennas using, for example, quartz. I've been doing a lot of experiments with quartz and like wrapping quartz, because it creates that piezoelectric effect, and that seems to amplify it. The basalt situation, the bird sounds things I've done as well too, putting out like a lot of flaxseed, so the birds come around, right? Because birds love flaxseed. They will come from all over, and depending on the color of the flaxseed, they will actually come more, right? Like, for example, if it's like a certain golden flax, they will come from miles away, I've seen. Versus if it's a brown flax, they won't even touch it. And it's interesting because I think that goes into the color spectrum in which they can see and they can pick up on from certain things. But yeah, just traditional. Farm, and we're working
on a windy farm Campbell's moved to too.
Yeah, it is a bit windy. Can you hear it?
But we're doing some. I'm doing some stuff with a couple people where they're doing some larger scale, different types of experiments to see how, for example, on a large area, how much they can amplify. And my buddy sent me a message already. He started all of this only like 2 weeks ago or whatever it was, March 11th. Actually, he told me. So it was March 11th, and he's already got radishes since March 11th, and all of his stuff is just going crazy. And he's doing it now on a large scale where he built a gigantic antenna that's probably about 20 to 30, maybe about 30 feet tall. And it's got all the different types of copper coming out of it. And then he ran the copper through the ground to create a grid, right? Like the crop circles, same exact thing. And then now he's covering a very large spectrum of space at the same time. And we're going to kind of see what happens with that. But he's already getting stuff that he's like, I don't even get this in months. And it's already happening in 3 weeks, you know, and yeah, that's what I'm kind of working on, trying to figure out how we can amplify. And then also like which stones, right? Like, let's say we talk about like magnetite, or we talk about like lapis lazuli, right? All the different stones that there are. This one, magnetite, is the magnet in which they used to make the compasses out of, right? When they used to make compasses, they would put some magnetite in there. Or they would make dowsing rods. They would put magnetite in there because it picks up on the magnetic north. And then the other one is lapis lazuli, which has the copper in it, right? The blue, you got the copper in there as well. But this one has a lot of sulfur and is very conductive, right? If you strike, for example, this stone against this stone, you can actually create a fire. It's very, very conductive. But we've had a couple people who've experimented putting the lapis lazuli on their coil, and their plant exploded in a short amount of time. So I think each stone, each crystal, right, also emanates and creates different types of frequencies and things like that. And it's just kind of understanding, okay, which ones should I be using, right, for the color spectrum that I may be in need, right? When we look at all the stuff that's going on in the sky, what are they doing? They're blocking the sun. the color spectrum of the sun. So when we start putting all these beautiful